Welcome to 10 Forward. Please have a seat. Madam Guinan will be with you shortly to take your order. We hope you enjoy tonight's show. Peace and long life to everyone. Hello, everybody. Welcome to 10 Forward. And we are taking a break from Quark's Bar. We are taking a break from talking Star Trek and the MCU. And
The last
we're
thing I
going to
want to do
talk.
is talk about Discovery.
No, we want to talk horror, not nightmares.
Exactly.
But anyway, folks, we're going to talk today. We're going to talk about classic horror, basically around the 1900s to the 1950s, what many of us call about the golden age of horror that a lot of us grew up on. Now, we're going to probably focus a lot on the Universal monster movies, which most of us are probably very familiar with, but that is not all we're going to talk about. We can go anywhere in this gambit. So, Jack, I'm going to defer to you first. Your thoughts on classic horror? How'd you get into it? How did it make you feel back then?
So, excuse me. I've always known about Dracula and Frankenstein and stuff like that. My mother was always into horror movies, but she was more into like the modern '80s horror movies. So I wasn't. They didn't introduce me to the classic stuff. I introduced myself to the classic stuff. One day, I was in Universal Studios, Hollywood, and they were doing a Backtram tour. A Backtram tour is Universal Studios has like a theme park, but it also has a back lot where they film all the movies that they film, or whatever they film everything back there. And there's neighborhoods full of houses like that are either partially real or actually real with interiors that you can film. But one of these places that I went to that was interesting to me was a place called the Court of Miracles. It's basically a small courtyard, like Gothic Victorian courtyard, and that's where they filmed the majority of these movies, these monster movies and stuff like that. I went back and started watching these movies because I wanted to recognize the sets in the background. So that was kind of where I introduced myself. The Court of Miracles was built in 1919, and it was probably built for the Hunchback of Notre Dame that was filmed or that was released in 1923.
The silent one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And from there was, from there they would use it for like a bunch of other monster movie sets. But one of the things that tripped me out about the difference between these classic monster movies and the ones from the 80s is that the classic monster movie, a lot of those, they really build up to moments. In the 80s, there's a bunch of build-ups in the movie, freaky, what do they call it? A jump scare. They do a lot of jump scare type of stuff in the 80s. And in the earlier times, the entire movie would build up to like one moment like that. But that moment was the moment that everybody talked about when they left the theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dracula came out in 1931. And one of the things I loved about that movie is the moment where Dracula is like, "Look at them, children of the night." The way he says it, it's just, I don't know. It was like awe-inspiring, and
yeah, Bela Lugosi could do some good stuff.
He was really good. The same year that Dracula came out, 1931, Frankenstein also came out
with Boris Karloff.
Yeah, and so it was, that was kind of the beginning of the this Universal monster franchise that they they wouldn't call it a franchise back then. They were just putting movies together. And then one day they were like, what if the Wolfman and Frankenstein get together and fight? So that's kind of how it happened, and it happened more often back then than it did in the '80s. In fact,
Yeah.
there wasn't any crossover. I think the two crossovers was Aliens versus Predator and Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would
those were the only real two major ones that I can remember, unless I'm missing something. Let's do the monster
positive
match.
candor. I love that. Hey, positive. If you want to come hang out, buddy, let me know. I'll shoot you the link. Yeah, so you got into them a little bit later in life, I'm guessing, when you
Yes.
got older. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, and this is a story that's not uncommon, I tend to say it a lot.
Hmm.
Uh, my stuff actually, my history in monster movies and stuff like that was in a basement. This was where my grandmother had this massive movie collection. My grandfather would buy movies for her because she couldn't get out much and
Hmm.
she couldn't go to the movie theater as often as she liked. And okay, I'm gonna talk while I'm shooting positive candor here, the link.
Okay.
So just give me a second. Let's look up. Oh, there he is. Now let me get over here. Where's that nice little part that says invite? Oh, there you are. Oh, so nice and comforting. And next. I'm still in Twitter jail till sometime Monday.
Are you?
Yeah, I might have narrowed down what it was I said, but it's okay. Hey, positive candor. Check your Twitter DM. It's in the mail there. Uh, so for me, it all grew up in basements. Now, this could have been a basement in West Virginia. This could have been a basement in Illinois. It just depended on where we lived at the time. And I lived a lot of times with my grandmother and grandfather, or I visited them. So she had a massive VHS collection. I mean, we're talking wall to wall bookshelves. I'm talking L shaped bookshelves and stuff. And this is the 80s, and I just would grab a movie, pop it in. It didn't matter if it was black or white, it didn't matter if it was color. I just, my curiosity as a 5, 6 year old was that stuff. And so I was watching Dracula, and I always remember, I haven't watched many of these movies in a while, but I always remember when he's like, I don't drink coffee. And I'm like, oh, that was so creepy. I got
his
chills.
deliverance was so like that's what I remember about it. And so like I also realized that like once I saw his performance and stuff, I realized that's what it every time somebody kind of like does like a fake vampire impression where they're like va, that's who they're pulling off of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
High
So,
positive candor.
a positive candor. So we're kind of going over our history of understanding the classic horror genre of the like 20s to the 50s. It's not limited to Universal, but obviously that's a big influence in a lot of the monsters. So, like I said, what would that being said, and then Positive Candor, I'll let you talk about your history behind it. When I was, a kid, I was allowed to watch these movies, and some of them were pretty scary at the time, but I was able to watch them and be entertained. Didn't matter if they were black and white. And then what a lot of times would happen is I would finish the movie, go talk to my grandmother, and have like a million freaking questions about the movie. Whether it be Dracula, Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, The Mummy. In fact, I remember when I was watching The Mummy, I was like, Grandma, why does that guy look familiar? Because it was the guy who played
It
Frankenstein,
was
and
Frankenstein. Yeah.
yeah, it was the guy who played Frankenstein's monster, and I was like, really? Because as a kid, I didn't realize, the whole thing with, it was one of my earliest. Oh, these are actors; they play different roles, and I might see somebody in something else. That was one of my earliest connections to that, which it's one of those things that still stays in my memory. And then some of the fact that these were done in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and some of the effects really hold up. I'm going to tell you, one of my favorites, Creature from the Black Lagoon. The way they did those swimming things, fantastic.
That was cool. My favorite moment that like I can remember is the what do you call it, the Invisible Man, which I think came out in 1940. There's a really famous scene of, because he's always wearing.
No, The Invisible Man came out in 1933, buddy.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a version. I think there might. No, the Invisible Man Returns came out in 1940. You're right.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. But the biggest like scene from there is when he takes off his thing on his head and there's no head, and he's laughing the whole time. He's cackling as he's doing it, and he throws the rag at them, and then he starts to chase. It was great. That I never forgot. Like I can never take that image out. That was actually really, really good.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of good stuff, and I think the stories really make up for a lot. The writing, the lighting, the character acting, and everything. But with that being said, positive candor. How you doing, buddy?
Well, yeah, I mean, the ones that I remember, yeah, you pretty much have named pretty much. Yeah, I remember the creature from the Black Lagoon. I remember the Invisible Man. I remember, I guess, the Abbott and Costello movies that also had Frankenstein and Dracula in it, and the Mummy, and whatever else. I guess all those classic monsters, I guess, in a way. So, yeah, I mean, I remember the original Frankenstein, the black and white, obviously. I mean, yeah, it's always the black and whites that still are superior to the remakes that they've tried to make, including that terrible Tom Cruise Mummy. I mean, I like the Brandon Fraser Mummy movies. I do like those movies, but yeah, the remake with Tom Cruise was just terrible. Um, don't know what they were trying to go for there, but
Uh, who produced that? I can't remember his name. The Mummy Returns, not the Mummy, the Tom Cruise Mummy. I think that was Alex Kurtzman.
yeah, there you go.
I never even saw it. I saw the trailer and I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I saw it. Unfortunately,
oh, I did
Yeah,
not see it at all.
I saw it. Sad. Yeah, it wasn't very good. But you know
yeah,
what I
I
did like? I did like Dracula Untold.
I did too.
Yeah, it was.
Uh,
I mean that's a modern one, but it was more. Like what I liked about it was they added a historical background to Dracula. Um, that actually made sense in history. Uh, I'm a history guy, so that I appreciated that.
I did too. I actually thought it was pretty good. And hey, guys, I'm going to go ahead and throw the StreamYard in the chat. If anybody wants to pop in to talk classic monster movies, please come in. So, hey, positive candor. So, what was your history behind getting into these horror movies? Were you casual? Were you passionate about? Was it something like for example, I don't know if you heard, Jack Beers got into them a little bit later doing research. I was about 6, 7 years old when I started. Getting into the classic monster movies of that era, so
yeah,
I'm curious to what was your experience into that?
yeah. It was probably when I was pretty young. Don't know my exact age when I first saw horror movies. Not that it's a monster movie, but obviously The Exorcist was one of the first ones I saw as well.
Oh God, that
Um,
movie scares me to this day.
yeah, and then obviously the Halloween and Friday the 13th movies. That was probably during my teenage years, I would say. When all and Nightmare on Elm Streets, all those.
The slasher movie era.
Yeah, the
Yeah, I'm
slasher.
actually
Yeah.
going to. Yeah, actually, positive candor. If you want to, you're kind of beating me to the end of the stream. But tomorrow, Sunday. No, you're fine. Sunday, we're going to talk about the slasher movies
Okay.
because I know
Yeah.
that's probably fresher in a lot of our heads with what we've remembered growing up. Uh, but like I said, some of us grew up on the classic horror movies at different times, and that's
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
but I mean,
Like.
without those classics, we wouldn't have got the slasher movies. I always
Yeah.
try to say,
Yeah. I mean.
there's a progression.
Yeah, the classics like Bram Stoker's Dracula. I remember specifically.
That was
Um.
actually a great movie. I
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah.
That is a perfect movie.
It
Yeah.
actually it actually is pretty good to the book.
Yeah.
Very
It's probably the well, I guess it came out in the 70s, more than likely. I'm guessing.
Bram Stoker's
Um,
Dracula. No, I think it came out in the early '90s.
yeah.
oh, okay. Oh, okay. So yeah, it's a more recent, I guess, movie compared to the Bela Lugosi Dracula movies,
Obviously,
obviously, who who obviously made the character in the first place, um, or portrayed it pretty well in the first place. But obviously, I like the ones that he's in as well. But Bram Stoker's Dracula was definitely a good remake. And then Interview with the Vampire with Tom Cruise again was kind of
That was a good.
weird, but I thought it was okay. Um, but that was kind of weird. And then of course you had the classic TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer based on the movie, um, where it got more popular to have your werewolves and your vampires, and of course I don't want to go to Twilight because that was terrible. But again, you got again you're making vampires into more sexualized things and stuff like that, and werewolves and stuff like that. So I mean, it's gone from one end of the spectrum to unfortunately a bad part of the spectrum. But you got to still mention it. Unfortunately.
To Pop Culture Avenger, Lex Legend, LDG Pixels. It's great to have you guys. I've got the link in the StreamYard right there. If you want to come in, uh, please come in, talk your classic horror movie era. Doesn't have to be universal. I'll tell you one of the ones that actually scared me the most as a kid was the silent Nosferatu.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was pretty
Yeah,
good.
yeah, that's
Uh,
good.
like the one that got me. There was a movie that I didn't expect to. I didn't expect to really like. It was this silent film called The Man Who Laughs, and it came out in
Mm,
1928. And for most of the movie, it's a guy he's got his mouth covered because he's deformed, and then when they finally show his face or whatever, his face is stuck in this permanent smile. And I was watching a clip last night, and I brought my roommate who knows nothing about this movie over, and I was like, "Who does that look like?" And he looks at it, he was like, "That guy looks like the Joker."
that's what the Joker was inspired by.
Yes, and I love it too because there's a scene where everybody knows what he looks like now, and they're laughing at him. Right? There's a scene where like the crowd is laughing at him, and him and like his women are there, and he says something like, "Hear how they laugh at me, nothing but a clown." And I read, as soon as I read it, I ended up reading it in the voice of Mark Hamill's Joker. Hear how they laugh at me, nothing like a clown, or nothing but a clown. I can't do that, but yeah.
Laugh at me. Nothing but a clown.
Yeah, so that came out in 1928, and then Batman was created in 1939. But
Joker
the
didn't come about until 1940 with Batman #1.
yeah, so part of that inspiration was from The Man Who Laughs, but Batman's later Dark Knight inspiration comes a little later from a movie called The Bat. That came out in 1959, and if you watch a lot of that, they have a Gothic city that looks like Gotham City. They have something that looks like it's supposed to be like a special, like a bat. You know, it's like a special effect, but it's projected onto walls and stuff, and so it looks like the bat signal. Stuff, you know, there's elements that would later be turned into like the Dark Knight sagas and stuff like that, where you know, after they reinvented Batman from the 1960s, where he was more campier back then.
Yeah, but believe it or not, that's what actually saved the comic book.
It did.
It did.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Adam West did a great job for that. You know, for that role, as he did it perfectly.
As the Bright Knight.
As the Bright Knight, exactly. And that's his words, by the way.
Exactly, but you know what? They fit. Pop culture Avenger. Nosferatu was one scary looking vampire. Great use of shadow in the movie.
Yes.
Yes, and the prosthetics they used. I mean, sometimes we see stuff and we're like, "This looks so fake," and then you can watch something going all the way back then. And you're like, "Why is it? It looks so good there." But yet we're looking at now 100 years late, almost 100 years later, and something can look like garbage, whereas something can look great. Whereas, yeah, that Nosferatu, even the remake, I think, was done in the 1970s, was so faithful to the original adaptation, I couldn't help but enjoy it.
Right.
Positive Candor, your thoughts?
You're right, Pete Cat. You can. You can hear Claude Ryan's Invisible Man influence.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. That is definitely a good point.
In fact,
Where
Mark,
he's laughing
Mark Hamill tweeted
maniacally.
about that. Mark Hamill actually tweeted about that.
Oh, did he? I did not know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know everybody has to kind of come up with their own inspiration for their own Joker laugh, but I've always been one to say, no matter what, I just feel Mark Hamill's done it the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. Voice wise, yeah, he's done it the best. Um, you know, performance wise, nothing beats Heath Ledger and stuff like that. But every time I read a comic book or something like that, and I'm reading, like, you know, the Joker's dialogue, I'm reading it in Mark Hamill's Joker voice in my head.
Yeah, and I do the same thing with Batman.
Yeah, same with Batman. Yes.
Yeah, Kevin Conroy's the only voice I can think of,
Yeah,
whether he's
same thing.
playing Bruce Wayne or he's playing that. Uh, So one of the things I always loved about, and I was talking about this when I was watching with my father not too long ago, The Man Who Shot Liberty Vance. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, I'm bringing up a Western horror, is because at that time, color was very norm. So the fact that they shot it in black and white, and as I'm watching the movie, I'm like, I'm catching the lighting, I'm catching the shadows, I'm really focusing on that because there's no color, and I'm like, it reminds me of a time when we were watching uh these classic horror movies, and they had to really pay attention to the lighting, the shadowing, the tone, the hues. They had very little to work with in that kind of stuff, I guess, and they had to do it with very old technology. And then when I think of, for an example, the creature of the Black Lagoon, where we're seeing him underwater, and it is really crystal clear. You can see all that, and you're like, when you're a kid, you don't give it much thought, but when you get to be an adult and you start really thinking, you're like, how the hell did they do that back then? Jack, I can't hear you.
yeah, not only were they creative in the in like their shots and everything, but they had to invent how to do that. You know, they had to invent ways to do that, especially like when the Invisible Man, when he, reveals his invisible head. You know, that is an early ass special effect. I'm not exactly sure how they did. I never looked it up, but it's something that we can probably do nowadays, like with just like the equipment we have. But back then, like they had to invent ways to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Positive Candor, your thoughts, buddy? I don't know if you're back or you can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, your thoughts on what we were just discussing, buddy?
Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. That these characters, to me, I don't know what really frightened me the most, um, if anything. I'm trying to think of what stuck with me. I mean, you have your ghost movies too, and Ghost was a one of those, I guess, in a way, even though it's not really a horror movie. But I guess you're. It seemed like every kind of a scary kind of a movie, and back in the day had your candles moving across the table and stuff like that kind of deal, and your kind of old mansion type thing that somebody would walk into that was all decrepit and stuff like that. Kind of reminds me of Beauty and the Beast in a way, you know.
Oh, really? Elaborate on that.
Well, just how the Beast is in a kind of old looking mansion as well, kind of a thing and stuff like that. So even though it's not a horror movie per se, I mean they kind of depict it that way with the Beast. And I guess you could call him I mean, he's still, I guess, a character that is, I guess, similar, obviously, more to a werewolf than anything else. But once he finds true love, obviously, he turns back to his normal self. So again, you always have these instances, yeah, where the main villain creature, in a way, as far as Dracula and the werewolf, I guess mainly, can turn back into a human character, kind of, sort of. Um, but they have that dual personality, oh, I like the Blade series too. I don't know if you mentioned that or not, but Blade I really liked. I mean, Trinity was probably the weakest of the Blade movies, but it's still. But I still like the vampire genre, I guess, a lot. There's been so many different, I guess, versions of it, I guess, in a way that and like I said, unfortunately Twilight went the frickin' young crowd for it. But I mean, I guess if you've gone from gruesome to whatever light kind of vampire movie,
Sparkly.
if you want to call it that or whatever.
Mm.
Um,
You
but yeah,
know, oh, sorry, positive.
no, I mean it's just weird how the one specific villain, and I guess it's the werewolves are in this category too, besides vampires, can be portrayed from one extreme to another extreme, I guess, in a way, from being very horrible type creatures to being very malevolent almost creatures in a way. Um, and I guess you make them malevolent so they can draw in their prey per se, kind of deal, and then sink their fangs into the usually girl victim. You know,
Hey, Mr. Hyde, if you love the Universal horror stuff, I just popped the StreamYard in again. You're more than welcome to come in and talk about this stuff. So you brought up an interesting point, positive candor. And it reminded me of something. Back in the 90s, I had this book. It was called the Encyclopedia of Vampires. And it had the different variations of vampires from different mythologies throughout the world. I mean, you found out that there were different versions of types of vampires and stuff in almost every country, every culture. It was really amazing. Very much, though, what was interesting was a lot of similarities, whereas there was also, of course, a lot of differences and a lot of different aspects of how these vampire cultures acted. But there was a lot of times it was very similar in the terms of what the aspects of the vampire was, or what they, in their culture called a vampire. And it was a very interesting read. I ended up writing one of my English papers on it. I mean, you can have from your Twilights. You also have your 30 Days of Night. You also have your Bela Lugosias, uh, Christopher Plummer. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. I mean, even you have the Phantom of the Opera. The Phantom is considered, I guess, a
Oh yeah.
horror type
hmm
There,
person, and of
they
course,
they made two of those between 1925
think 1940
and
or something.
1940. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
and of course, the Hunchback of Notre
1943.
Dame.
1943.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then the
Yeah, I've got
Hunchback of
I've got
Notre
that I've
Dame,
got that Universal thing up
which
on
we
my
didn't
list.
mention yet either. Um, and then you also got who else haven't we mentioned besides? Well, I guess we've semi mentioned Frankenstein, but not really.
No, but
Uh,
we can
No, we
definitely
haven't.
talk.
Yeah, I think it came out in 1931, and then there was the Bride of Frankenstein um,
The
that
Son
came
of
out
Frankenstein. Yeah, The Bride of Frankenstein came out in
1935.
1935, and Son of Frankenstein 1939.
Yeah, um, the classic "It's Alive" scene. Um, it's classic for a reason. There's a reason why, in the when they finally go to the 80s with the weird silence and stuff, they take samples from they actually take samples from that movie with the "It's Alive" shit, right? So um, it's a yeah. The idea that he wasn't an evil monster. He wasn't an evil being. The monster wasn't an evil being. It was just different. And because he was different, people wanted to kill the monster and everything. And it was an interesting tale um, because normally the villain, normally the monsters are like an evil thing, like Dracula is an evil thing, but Frankenstein wasn't.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Monster Fan Nosferatu Look was also used in the TV adaptation of Salem's Lot with David Soul and James Mason. Vampire played by Reggie Nadler. Okay, I've actually never seen the TV adaptation of Salem's Lot, so I'm gonna have to take a look at that. But thank you for bringing that up.
oh
That
yeah,
sounds
that's
interesting.
yeah. Salem's Lot is definitely a weird movie, especially the original. With I think David Soul is in that, if I'm right.
Yeah, I think that's what he was. I think that's what Monster Fan was saying. I've actually never seen Salem's Lot either version. It's just one of those Stephen King movies. Ironically, probably one of the few Stephen King movies adaptions I have not seen from a book I read. Now, I will say this: I am someone who's read many of the horror books that ended up becoming movies. And I have read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. In fact, I bought it for
Yeah.
my wife. We're
I mean,
reading
do
it. We're
you?
reading. No, go ahead. Positive.
I mean, do you consider Christine, even though it was a car, to be kind of a monster in a way?
Yes,
Okay.
a
Okay.
possessed monster.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's
Yeah,
good. Yeah, because
I would
Christine,
definitely.
yeah, that Plymouth was definitely an awesome movie. Yeah.
Oh yeah, fantastic, especially for being done in the '70s. And but
We haven't
when
even touched the because once the Universal monster period was kind of over, that's when the Alfred Hitchcock stage.
oh, we're gonna have to save those for next week
Okay,
because then we're going into
okay,
the suspense horror stuff.
okay.
Because and I love. I mean, dude, I'll talk all day. I'll spend an entire hour talking about the birds.
Yes,
Hands down, I'll spend an
yes.
entire hour talking about that.
We could spend an entire hour talking about Hitchcock himself. Yeah.
That or Psycho, I could spend an hour talking about either one. Hands down, I could spend plenty of time talking about those movies. So what I was going with, going back to Frankenstein, uh, is while the original movie is a wildly different interpretation of the book, because it's nowhere near like the book. Because actually, that movie where Robert De Niro plays the monster in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, that was came sometime after Bram Stoker's Dracula. They made Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and it was awesome. Loved it. But one of the biggest things when you had in the book is Dr. Frankenstein is so obsessed with reanimating life, so he does it, and then he's disgusted by it. He casts the monster out, and this is where you realize the monster isn't the bad guy. The
Yeah.
bad guy is Frankenstein. Frankenstein is really the monster.
Right.
And in the movie, you have, whereas in the book, he didn't really have so much of that outcast thing. He kind of learned how to survive on his own. It was a more evolution of his character. And we were kind of flipping between the monster and Dr. Frankenstein. Whereas in this, it's alive. And he does create life, and, the whole thing happens. The villagers, he gets out, he accidentally kills the girl, didn't mean to, and
Yeah.
didn't even, he didn't even, and that's one of the more tragic of anything. She was tossing flowers in, and he just thought it would be normal to toss her and didn't realize he was going to kill her because he was unfortunately ignorant. He was then
Right.
actually, in all reality, he was innocent.
He was
He was a very
born like
innocent
the
being.
day before. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a very innocent creature. And, I always say fear is a powerful thing, and we see it in this. It's not that the monster does anything wrong. It's that everybody else does something wrong, and instead of trying to help him, they're so afraid they just immediately go to attack. And what's he going to do when he's constantly being attacked? He's going to fight back.
Yeah.
He's going to
Exactly.
fight or flight.
Exactly. And that's one of the, as I say, that's one of the things I liked about it was that it wasn't the normal monster is the bad guy type of story.
No, it absolutely was not.
And then they kept making they made like a butt ton of Frankenstein movies. There's one they made one Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman in 1943.
Yep.
Stuff like that. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein in 1948.
I think that was actually one of the last ones they did for Universal.
Yeah, I think the last Universal monster movie they did was Creature Among Us, maybe
1956.
Yeah. So, and then after that would be the Hitchcock phase, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, I remember, I don't think a lot of people know this, but, and I don't know if Paz Skinner, did you know that they actually made a trilogy of The Creature from the Black Lagoon?
I didn't even know that.
No, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, so it was, let me see if I can read. Creature from the Black Lagoon came out in 1954, and then Revenge of the Creature. I think that's the right one.
Yeah, Revenge of the
Uh,
Creature was
oh, the
1954.
Creature Among Us is that was the last of the Creature of the Black Lagoons, because it was Creature of the Black Lagoon in 54, Revenge of the Creature in 55, and then Creature Among Us in 56. So yeah, you're right. That was the last one, but that was part of the
And
that was the that was
I
actually a
guess
trilogy.
I guess Swamp Thing is entirely different, right?
Yeah,
I
Swamp
think
Thing
so.
is completely different. But I've seen all three of them of the Creature of the Black Lagoon trilogy, and I just always loved. Well, first off, I don't know where it was shot at, but it was freaking gorgeous. I mean, they somehow did the lighting on the water great. The camera effects were awesome. The suit of the creature was fantastic.
Yes. Yes, whoever put that, whoever put that together, like, I hope he got awards and stuff like that, because that was impressive. That was an impressive suit.
PCAB, Middle Creature Revenge had some guy named Clint Eastwood in a small scene. Clint Eastwood,
Oh,
never heard of him.
Revenge of the Creature, right? That's what you're talking about. And they
Yeah,
had,
Revenge. Clint Eastwood, never heard of the guy. I don't know anything about him. Has he been anything recently? Did he, have any good movies that I should know about?
hmm,
So, I mean, I'm just,
Nah, he never amounted
nah,
to anything.
nah.
nothing of importance.
I mean, if you ever go to classic Western movies, I guess we can semi talk about them, but
Hey, I'll have to look him up.
or maybe
Is
some
he
guy
on
named
IMDb or something?
he might be in something called
Okay,
Dirty.
okay, I've done that about as long. Okay, I've done that joke about as long as I can. I can't keep it up anymore.
Yeah, Dirty Harry rings a bell for some reason, But
I give up. I can't keep that up anymore. That was great. Thanks, PCAT. I actually, I'm gonna have to look that up again because I didn't know that. I didn't know Clint Eastwood was in a small role in that. Uh, was it a cameo kind of thing, or walk on, or did he have some voice role? If you remember, let us know. I'd love to check that out. I'm sure I could find it on YouTube, but I couldn't keep that up anymore. I was trying so hard to see how long I could be like, oh, who's Clint Eastwood? Oh, goodness gracious, I made myself cry laughing so hard at that. I don't know what I was thinking there. Oh, talking about, the creature from the Black Lagoon, for example. We talked about the suit and everything and how just well they did it. I'm wondering, I'd love to see the behind the scenes. I wish they did those back then. Of, how they managed to do the waiting and keep him under there and actually not look like he's breathing. Like he's gill breathing, not air breathing, bubble breathing. I would love to have seen that because the more I've thought about it over time, it's one of the technically well mastered done horror movies of the time with the practical effects they put into it.
Hmm. And well, back then, Universal Studios, in fact, they still do it today with the back tram tours. They realized early on that they could make money by paying a small fee. If they paid a small fee, letting them come to the backstage and watch things being filmed. So you used to just go to the back lot, pay a small fee. Sometimes you can sneak in, and sometimes you can sneak in, and you would watch these classic movies being filmed, and a lot of future directors actually learned their trait by doing that, including Steven Spielberg, who used to go into the back lots of Universal Studios, and one of the directors that he saw filming movies was Mr. Hitchcock.
the master of suspense. Oh, I gotta say this because I popped it up. Piquet, you're right. I actually remember that scene. I actually remember it now
Hmm.
because my grandmother was watching that movie with me and pointed out that was Clint Eastwood. So yeah, he's 100% right. When, as you know, I was trying to remember, but once he said the mouse of the pocket, I was like, oh, I know what he's talking about now. I knew exactly what he was talking about. Thank you, Peacat.
And
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, and Spielberg with Jaws specifically
Hmm.
kind of brought back the monster type movie in a way in 1975. You know.
Oh yeah, because eventually, eventually like that kind of led to like the second golden age of horror, I call it, would be the
Yeah.
80s. Um,
The slasher era.
yeah, the slasher era.
Well, I mean, the
Oh, sorry.
shark was still
Mr. Hyde, I totally understand, buddy.
yeah, the shark was still a monster, basically, in a way,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I thought that was yeah, interesting that Spielberg, was involved in that.
He that boat that that boat that they had in the movie. Uh, they had kept that boat for a long time in the back lot in right in the same waters. And Steven Spielberg, when he needed to decompress, he would get on that boat and just like chill out in the water.
Hmm.
Eventually, it rotted away, and so they had to get rid of it. But
Yeah.
um, he,
Okay,
yeah,
okay. You know what? We're gonna jump the classic horror stuff, and for the last 15, 20 minutes of this stream, we're just gonna talk Jaws now because I'm sorry, you just brought it up, you two, and I can't let this go. I was gonna go back to the Wolfman and stuff, but you know what? Screw it, we're gonna jump to Jaws. I'll edit the title later. But okay, guys, let's talk some Jaws. One of them, the thing that kept us out of the frickin' beach, for God's
Oh
sakes,
yeah,
as a kid.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the classic scene obviously is Quint getting swallowed by the shark. And of course, Brody saying you're going to need a bigger
The bigger
boat.
boat.
but
mm,
I like the story of the Indianapolis, especially in the movie about the men in the water off of the sub, and the sharks are swimming around, and you never know who it's going to basically take under, type of
mhm.
a deal. I like that story that Quint told in the movie, and that is a I mean, he makes that movie just as much as Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss do.
Yes,
Uh,
that's who I thought it was, Richard Dreyfuss back then.
yeah, yeah. Richard Dreyfuss is the paleontologist or whatever the heck he is, but or not paleontologist, but anyway, um, as
What about that soundtrack? Dun dun
oh
dun
yeah,
Dun,
dun
dun,
dun
dun.
dun
Oh
dun.
my God.
dun dun dun.
Okay, that's one of those things everybody knows that theme to. It's like
Yeah,
the Imperial March, for God's sakes,
Yes.
or the opening crawl to Star Wars, for God's sakes. Everybody knows that.
yeah. I mean, the music gets ingrained into your head, basically. Um, And of course, once they start playing it, then you know that the shark is coming, basically. But
Right. And for decades afterwards, people have been parodying that
oh yeah,
as a sign of danger is coming. You know what I mean?
yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, what did you guys think? Okay, when did you likely first see this movie? I saw it when I was about probably 10 years old, and I lived in Florida, and you couldn't get me to the beach. You couldn't get me in the water of the beach for about 2 years.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I saw it around. I was about 10 years old, so I saw it around right around 1989, 1990, and I remember watching this movie. And I'm talking about, I don't talk about many. I can name the movies that scared the crap out of me for a long time. That would be, Psycho, Jaws, The Exorcist, and Poltergeist. and then later on, The Ring. Those are the 5 movies that have scared the shit out of me in my life. Jaws was definitely in the top 2.
So I'm a bit sadistic. It didn't scare me. I was probably around 10 or 12 when I first saw it, and like afterwards, here's the thing. Like, I live in San Diego, and we have SeaWorld here, and in SeaWorld there was it had just came out around the time I had first seen Jaws, but they have something called the Shark Encounter, where you walk into there's a shark tank. You walk over, and then you can go under the shark tank. There's like a tunnel, and you can see the sharks swimming all around you, and it's freaking awesome. But after I saw Jaws, I wanted to go straight to Shark Encounter, and I wanted to like see all the sharks and shit.
You are sadistic. Positive candor. You?
You know what? I think I saw Jaws when it originally came out. I want to say in 1975. I think I mean my parents probably waited until it was at the dollar show, but yeah, I think I saw it when it originally came out at a dollar show or whatever. I mean, didn't see it right away, but I saw it. Like a month or two after it came out, whenever it went to the lower ranking theaters and stuff like that. So, and yeah, I mean, it's pretty ingrained into my mind and life and stuff like that as one of the movies that I will always remember just because of seeing it, I guess, in a theater and stuff like that. So yeah, and then of course, we rewatched it hundreds and hundreds of times, I'm sure, but
I still get chills watching it.
But yeah, I mean, I remember specifically all the jokes kind of that came out after it came out, especially about the head and shoulders joke and stuff like that.
I was one of the things that, like, when I was in film school, I didn't realize it until I got into film school, but cinematography wise, they used a shot that is like, so when he first I can't remember the guy's name, but there's a shot where he's looking, and he's scared, and what happens is the background seems to move behind him. A lot of people used to call it the Jaws shot, but they use it in tons of movies now. Like, they use it all the time now. And what the camera effect is simple. While you're backing out, you zoom in so that it looks like your subject matter is not
You're
moving.
talking about Rob Schneider. Or Rob Scheider. Yeah.
So the background is not moving, or the background is moving behind the character while the character stays steady, and it looks it's supposed to convey a feeling of dread, like the same feeling you would get from the dun 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 dun, stuff like that. And
Roy Scheider. I shouldn't have said Rob.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was one of the things I appreciated about it. Like, later on when I was, studying film and stuff like that, was that they were very, just the sophistication of, just a simple shot. You put a lot into a simple shot. What angle it's at? Why is it at that angle? The lighting behind it. Yeah. I just appreciate the cinematography of the movie as well.
Oh yeah, PCAT. Yeah, that blood-curdling screams by Chrissy in the opening scene stays with you. Yes, it does. It's like that iconic what the cover looks like. There's Chrissy on the cover, and there's Jaws coming up to eat her, and it's crazy. you mentioned the music, talked about the score. Did you guys know who actually did the music? Because I just looked it up.
Oh, John
Uh,
Williams.
yeah,
John Williams. Yeah, I didn't know, and after I saw that, I was like, okay, that explains everything.
yeah. There are maybe about 4 or 5 composers that um, anything they put out is gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, John Williams is one of them. Not Tim Burton. Danny Elfman
Hmm.
is another one. Alan Silvestri.
But I mean, when you know a composer by name, that really says something to who they are, because there's all kinds of composers like actors, directors, and stuff. But when
Mhm.
you really know them and you understand, you're like, when I'm looking that up, like I said, I just looked it up. I was typing Jaws in Wikipedia, and it said music John Williams. I was like, okay, now that all makes a whole lot more sense why it's so iconic.
Yep.
I mean,
Um,
I guess that's why, I guess that makes sense considering I mentioned, the Imperial March and, those things. And I was kind of like, well,
well,
he
yeah,
did them.
it was because it was done by the same guy, and he knows how to convey fear and dread,
Yes.
as well as hope. So I mean, he is one of the best when it comes to composers. Um, I mean, his Star Wars stuff is just el dente.
Oh, I gotta be, when I think about these, this kind of movie and stuff, it just amazes me is, they've been trying to recreate, and, it's one of those things where I'm going to say Jaws is one of those where stop trying to catch lightning in a bottle again. You're
Mhm.
not going to pull it off.
Yeah.
I don't care how many shark movies you make, whatever variation, and I've liked many of them, but
Mhm.
you're never going to capture what Jaws had. And I think it's less to do, and I'm going somewhere with this. I'm going to segue here real quick. Uh, okay, The Shining. To
Mhm.
me, The Shining is not scary without the music. If it
Yeah.
wasn't for the eerie ass music, that movie would not be scary. If it wasn't for the eerie score and music in Jaws, I don't think Jaws would have been that scary. It,
True.
it really was what makes them, because that's what I
A lot of that was a suspense.
exactly. And you can do really well with suspense and make the tension build, or you can make it flat and be like, that's it. And like when you get to the build up and you get the payoff, you're like, whatever. You didn't care. The tension wasn't there. But throughout this whole movie, the tension is really, especially when they're on the boat.
Mhm.
Oh, the tension is just weighing on you. Like, are they going to get out of this? How are they going to stop? What's going to happen? The tension is just there, and it really is built up in the music. And as you said, as a film guy, yeah, the camera angles and the stuff like that was really good. But not only that, the tension with the shark fin going by,
The
just the fin,
fin. The
just the
fin.
fin.
Yes. Yes.
It's like the less you saw of that shark, the way they did it, they balanced out the amount of time we saw the shark to the amount of time we didn't see the shark.
They
No, go ahead.
when you go to Universal Studios now in the Backtram tour, they have the Jaws experience where like there's a little pool, there's a guy in a boat, and the boat goes under, and like there's some blood that squirts out, and then you see the fin. And it goes around, and then there's this huge animatronic shark that comes out and like tries to bite you.
Oh wow.
But that, like, when it first came out, like, I was a kid and I first saw that, and it was scary as it actually was scary as fuck when I saw it, because I was startled, like I didn't expect them to come right at me. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, guys, my wife's about to start cooking, and then we're gonna go skating. So everybody's gonna be coming out here. So I'm gonna close this out. This was talking classic golden age horror movies, which segued into Jaws because, well, it's just one of the greatest. and it was impossible not to take that. I took the chum.
I'm gonna have to watch it today.
I might have to too. Coming up, I can't do a lot on Twitter because obviously I'm still in Twitter jail till Monday. Do you got anything coming up? Tomorrow we're gonna talk slasher movies about the same bad time, same bad channel, and that's what I got going on. Next week we'll talk. We'll go Hitchcock. I mean, oh my God, Hitchcock movies. I mean, dude, we'll spend almost the whole segment just talking Birds and Psycho.
Yeah, basically, and those are just two of the movies he's made. He's made a ton, and then of course he has the Alfred Hitchcock series.
Yeah, I mean, I like Vertigo and Rear Window.
Oh yeah, Vertigo too.
That's actually where this shot originated from. Vertigo, that shot I was talking about.
Yeah,
and so Steven Spielberg later used it in Jaws.
Yeah,
there was a story I was going to tell about that for the Hitchcock one.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. Jack, you got anything coming up?
I'm just I'm researching all of the ratings from Discovery. I'm doing a lot of just that.
Remember
now that I found out that Discovery's audience is probably an audience of about 2 million people, which is very, very low for a Star Trek audience. TNG used to average about 10 million viewers per day per episode, while Discovery is averaging less than 2 million.
Yeah, I've seen your numbers and everything. I'd comment on all of them, but like I said, I'm still in Twitter jail till Monday, so shit out of luck there. Yeah, I've seen your tweets about it, and I'm just like, oh my God. And you saw my DMs. I told you I when we talked about it, I was like, what the hell are we watching? And then when I saw what they did to the Andorians and the Orions, I was just like,
I have no idea how she survived that fall. I know they said like impact shields or something like that, but that would not have stopped her internal organs from rupturing.
Oh yeah, exactly. But like I said, for me, it was seeing what they did to the Andorians and the Orions. I was like, okay. But you know what? We'll pull a Quark's bar for that one of these times. We'll talk about it. Positive Canner, what do you got coming up this week, buddy?
I was going to say, you know that you feel the burn from an STD, right?
Yes. The burn. STD is suffering from the burn.
So I find that ironic, but anyway, that's called by Burnham too. But
oh God! Oh, now I'm never gonna forget this.
But,
burn caused the burn from an STD.
Caused the burn in STD.
Yes, there you go.
Have you heard the burn is the burn? STD. Yeah, I totally botched that one. Yeah. But Positive Canner, what do you got? What do you got coming up this week, buddy?
I'll probably do something starting on Monday again, and then I'll discuss Discovery on Thursday and The Mandalorian on Friday, since that's getting ready to start in 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks, the end of the month.
Yeah, so that'll be.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to season 2.
I love that trailer, especially the whole thing with the Baby Yoda doing he sees him getting his little wizard. He's like, I was just like, my wife and I just started rolling. We were laughing so hard. Hey man, when you do those, let us know. We can all. I'll be more than happy to come on and talk about. Discovery, The Mandalorian. I'll be more than happy to hang out with you on that.
Okay. Yeah, it'll probably be in the morning, probably around 10 or so in the morning if I do it.
Easy enough for me. Easy enough for me. 10 o'clock, which time zone?
Eastern.
Oh, yeah. I'm always up by then.
Okay.
Yeah, because I homeschool my kids, so yeah, I would definitely be up for that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Cool beans. All right, everyone. I hope you had a great time talking classic horror movies. I'd like to thank everyone who came in the chat. Let's see, PCAP, Mr. Hyde, Monster Fan, Pop Culture Avenger, Lex the Legend, LDG Pixels, Nancy V333. Oh God, I totally missed your tweet. I missed your text. I'm sorry. Now I feel like a piece of shit. Stephen Brandy 1701 said Trash Kurtzman. Yeah, I would agree. I'd like to burn him like 2020, but we can't. But to everyone, Jack Beers, Positive Candor, thanks for coming in, man. I love talking this. This was a nice change of pace for us. I love the fact that I know we could have talked more classic monster movies, but we were talking Jaws, and it's just so hard not to. And I know we didn't get into the deep details of it, but I think the experience we talked about of Jaws and the things like that is more important than recapping it, because let's be honest, if you haven't seen Jaws yet, well, we got to pull some cards. That's all I'm going to say. With that, folks, we are out.